when wombats grow up, they are wild animals. So they do need to go back to the bush. And that was where Diary of a Wombat actually started. The wombat in that was a real wombat, and her name was Mothball. And she was rescued in Canberra as an orphan wombat, and she was raised by people. And that is how she learned about carrots and rolled oats. But because we have a wildlife refuge, Mothball Wombat came to live with us to learn how to be a wombat. That dirt was her destiny, that she should live in a wombat hole. And she absolutely loved it. She got out of the car and there was grass everywhere and she started eating grass. And she found the wombat hole and she raced into the wombat hole and she came out half an hour later absolutely covered with dirt with a great big wombat grin. And she just loved it. And after about 6 months, she started wandering away. And after a year, she'd left completely. She'd found another wombat hole, another territory somewhere. And I thought I would never see her again. But then we had a drought and the grass grew brown and then there was no drought. And suddenly, one afternoon at the back door, there was a noise going, eh. Now, means feed me my carrots at once or I'll bash your back door down. And I managed to open the door, but I hadn't opened through the screen door, raced down, tore up the bath mat, grabbed the toilet paper, pulled the toilet paper all around the room out in the hallway. I got a dish of food for her then, and she buttered the back of my leg. So I went everywhere and the food went everywhere. I managed to get to my feet and she jumped. I was wearing a dress. And she grabbed the back of my dress and she ripped it right from the collar, right down to the hem of the dress. She was hot, she was hungry, and it was all our fault. And that is where the Diary of a Wombat began. This wombat who learned that food comes from human beings and it is the human's duty to give it to her.
To give it to them.
Okay. We've got some wombats. We've got some wombats.
There's some wombats.
Oh, wow. We've got wombats.
Cami, I love your mark.
Oh, are they beautiful?
And Raiden, oh my gosh, we've even got baby up there. How are you?
Oh, that is wonderful. And a carrot with a carrot. A wombat with a carrot. Okay. Well, this is the true story of a wombat called Mothball, who used to live in the hole just over there, and I wish I could show it to you. And now her granddaughter, Wild Whiskers, lives there, and Wild Whiskers has inherited, shall we say, the stroppiness of her grandmother, as well as her grandmother's hole. But I need some help to read this story. So when I say scratched, can you all scratch? Let's try. 1, 2, 3, scratch. Everyone? Scratch. Yep, scratch. Good. And slept. Sleeping wombats? Oh, that's it. Perfect. Lovely. And dug. Can you dig a hole? And we need a carrot. That's it, perfect. And ate grass. So let's go through it once again. We scratch like wombats. We sleep like wombats. We eat carrots like wombats. We eat grass like wombats. And we dig like wombats too. I carry a wombat together, doing all of the actions that you really need to read this book. Okay, Monday morning, slept, sleeping wombats. Afternoon, slept, Sleeping wombats. Evening. Ate grass. Night. Ate grass. Slept. Sleeping wombats. Tuesday. Morning. Slept. Sleeping wombats. Afternoon. Slept. Evening. Ate grass. Night. Ate grass. The side of grass is boring. Scratched. Hard to reach the itchy bits. Slept. Sleeping wombats. Wednesday morning. Slept. Afternoon. Mild cloudy day. Fell. On the perfect dust
A
bar.
bit frozen.
Discovered flat story. Again. Discovered flat hairy creature invading my territory.
We're up again.
Fought major battle with flat hairy creature. Won the battle. Demanded a carrot. One happy wombat. Evening. Demanded more carrots. No response. Shoot hole in door. For Pete's sake, give us some carrots. 8 carrots. Scratched. Went to sleep. Thursday morning. Slept. Afternoon. Discovered the perfect scratching post. Evening. Demanded carrots. No response. Tried yesterday's hole. Curiously resistant to my paws. Bashed up garbage bin till carrots appeared. 8 carrots. Began new hole in soft dirt. Went to sleep. Friday morning. Slept. Afternoon. Discovered a new scratching post. Also discovered a new source of carrots. Evening. Someone has filled in my new hole, which actually was me because it was in my flower bed. Swing back out again. Night. Worked on hole. Saturday morning. Moved into new hole. Afternoon. Rained. New hole filled up with water. Moved back into old hole. Evening. Discovered even more carrots. Never knew there were so many carrots in the world. Carrots, delicious. Right. Finished carrot. One very, very fat wombat filled up with carrots. Sunday morning. Slept. Afternoon. slept. Evening, slept. Night, offered carrots at the back door.
Ooh.
Why would I want carrots when I feel like rolled oats? Demanded rolled oats instead. Humans fail to understand my simple request. Am constantly amazed how dumb humans can be. Chewed up 1 pair of boots, 3 cardboard boxes, 11 flower pots, and the garden chair, till they got the message. 8 rolled oats, scratched, went to sleep. Monday morning, slept. Afternoon, felt energetic. Wet things flapped on my nose on my way to the back door. Got rid of them. Demanded oats and carrots. Only had to bash the garbage bin for 5 minutes before they arrived. Evening. Have decided that humans are easily trained and make quite good pets. Night, dug new hole to be closer to them. Evening, slept. And that is a hole that she lived in for the rest of her life, and Wild Whiskers lives in now. And in fact, Wild Whiskers has got a baby in her pouch. So we've actually got 2 wombats in that hole, but we haven't seen the baby yet. We just see a little nose peeking out of the pouch now and then. Has anyone got any questions about wombats, or will we go on to the next book?
Oh, I think we might go on to the next book.
Okay. Would you like the tomorrow book, The Fire Wombat, or the Hairy Nose Wombats Find a New Home? Which one would you like?
Sorry?
Because we may not have time for 3.
Which is
Which
your
do you think?
favorite?
Oh, they're all my favorite.
Hairy Nose
So we've got the Fire Wombat, we've got the Hairy Nose Wombats Find a New Home, and we've got the tomorrow book.
I like this one.
Okay, right, let's do this one. Okay, the Hairy Nose Wombats Find a New Home is a book that is sort of true. Back in, about 40 or 50 years ago, there were only 30 northern hairy nose wombats in the world. Their territory had been taken by grazing animals, and all the grasses they like had been taken over by other grasses and by weeds. And even when they started to be protected, there were only about 80 hairy nose wombats left. And no one really knew whether all of the hairy nose wombats might vanish from the world or not. But as soon as a safe fence was put around, as soon as there were feeding stations and water stations, and they were kept really safe, the wombats started to have babies, and more babies, and more babies, and more babies. And finally, there were so many wombats that we needed to find a new home for northern hairy nose wombats. And some wonderful people started the what's called the Richard Underwood Reserve. Sorry, I had an absolute blank on that one. They started that reserve particularly for northern hairy nose wombats. So this is the true story of moving some of those wombats to the new home for hairy nose wombats. But as you look at the illustrations, let's just say it wasn't quite like the illustration is true. Okay, the Hairy Nose Wombats find a new home. And this was done by Susie De Niro, who did the wonderful, wonderful pictures in it, just like Bruce Watke did the fabulous illustrations in the Wombat. Here we are. Once there were 176 wombats, all with whiskery noses. They were the only northern hairy noses in the world. What if a fire burnt their land? What if a flood washed away their burrows? The only hairy nose home might be gone forever. So some of the whiskery wombats needed to leave the burrows they had always known. They had to find another happy home for hairy noses. That's the wombats packing up. I got the one with the moustache most. But where would the new home be? It had to be out of flood reach. It must have tasty grass and be so good that hairy noses would have wispy wild babies too. It was time for one wondrous wombat adventure. 5 big brave boys set out, and that's true too. Boy wombats, for whiskery wombats to travel. They didn't all go on bicycles. Would the new place be as wonderful as they had hoped? It was.
Ta-da!
All of the other animals welcoming the new northern hairy nose wombats to their new home.
That looks
The
so
hairy nose boys gobbled the good green grass, soil, and then the girls arrived. I think probably what every northern hairy nose wombat secretly wants is their own bulldozer.
I just want to ride on mower.
More whiskery wombats came from the old home. And at last, the most special, wiggly, wobbly, wonderful wombat of them all. A baby wombat. The world would have more northern hairy noses and more happy homes for whiskery wildlife forever. And there they are in their new homes. But I do suspect that probably wombats don't have TVs and washing machines down their holes. But with wombats, you never, ever, ever really know. And that book was written when the new wombats had just gone to the Richard Underwood Reserve. But now there have been even more baby wombats. So many baby wombats, but there are now more than hairy nose wombats. And so there is a search out for the third home for northern hairy nose wombats. And I think probably in a year or two, there is going to be the most wonderful announcement because there will be a third home for northern hairy nose wombats. And the world will have northern hairy noses with very, very big hairy noses forever. And by the way, the wombat in this one is a bare-nosed wombat. They do have whiskers, but they've just got a small nose and just a few whiskers. But if you look at a northern hairy nose wombat, okay, they don't have moustaches, but a northern hairy nose wombat is much bigger and much more muscular. And they've got great big noses, almost square noses, and lots and lots of whiskers. They're very different. And there are also southern hairy nose wombats too, living down mostly in South Australia. And they too have got great big hairy noses, and they build great big enormous wombat burrows. Now, are there any questions? How are we going for time?
Oh, we've got heaps of time. We've got another 10 minutes at least.
Okay, lovely. Now, would you like the Tomorrow book, or would you like the Fire Wombat?
Oh,
The Tomorrow book.
The Tomorrow book might be good, the answer. Okay, the Tomorrow book is all about what happens when the king and queen decide to retire and they leave the little prince in charge. So let's see what happens. Because using only all of the information that the kids find in the library, they solve all of the problems. So once upon a time, or maybe just tomorrow, a little prince crawled into the palace library. But somehow, the world outside the palace never looked like the places he imagined as he read. Why? He asked the butler. That's real life, Your Highness, said the butler kindly. Well, said the little prince, I think real. One day, the king and queen parked up the royal camper van and left the little prince in charge. There we are, the king and queen heading off for their holiday with the royal dogs. The local kids decided it was time to visit. Please, can you help us? Our veggie garden is dying. We can't fill up our swimming pool. There's not even enough water to have a bath. Well, said the little prince, let's see. There he is. He's off to the library to see what the solution might be. You can collect water from your roof, use it over and over again inside, and then clean it to grow your veggies. You can even condense water from the air, enough to fill your swimming pool. And everything in this book really exists, and you can do it. You can condense water from the air. You can collect it from your roof to water your veggie garden. Mm-hmm. Soon the kids were back again. We need better ways to get around. We're sick of sitting in the car and petrol is so expensive. Well, began the little prince, the butler is bringing some books. You could run your car and your whole house by using the electricity from the sun or the wind. Why not use solar power and helium to fly instead? And in fact, that is really happening. Craft like this can use small solar-powered motors or batteries, and because they don't have to use all of this energy to lift themselves up, you can have great big, enormous flying ships that don't need a lot of power to use them, and they don't even need aerodromes. They can just land and be tethered outside. And yes, they exist now. But that night, psst, it's me again. Mum reckons my room's a mess, but you should see the junk grown-ups leave all over the place. Well, repair stuff and use old things to make new things. Hard plastic made from plants will turn back to soil one day. You could use it to make plastic spaceships, bicycles, and computers. And plastics that can be recycled into more things and more things and more things. And bacteria that will break down plastics so they turn back into soil again. And they are all things that exist in the world now. And they are all things you can find out about at the library. The prince hadn't been back at the palace long when, "More visitors, your royal highness," said the butler. The little prince grinned. "I know why you're here." Okay, can you see who the visitors are? He went over to the window and shouted aloud, "We need to share the world. We must find homes for animals with lots of trees and safe ways for them to move around." And what you can see there is a city that is made animal friendly. And in some parts of the world, that's what's being done. The tops of buildings, the roofs of buildings are being turned into habitats where animals can live and birds can live and birds can nest. And they have got tunnels or ropes so that animals can cross from one roof to another. We can have green space in our cities. We can even, in a great big tall building, have one whole floor that's turned into a park where wild animals can live, and we can grow food for us and the wild animals. And again, we can just have tunnels way up there where humans and animals can cross from one building to another. If we work out how to do it, our cities and our suburbs can be homes for wildlife too. And you can do it even if all you have got is a balcony. You can put out food for the birds, you can put out food for the possums, and most importantly, you can put out fresh water, because that's one thing that everyone needs. You can put out a lovely, cool, fresh water system for your birds. The palace library was always busy now. "It's going to be the best world soon," cried the little prince. And the sound of children's voices everywhere joined in. "Tomorrow." And that is the tomorrow world, with all sorts of things that scientists and other people are working on now. Human beings are clever. We can work out the most wonderful, inventive solutions to problems. And also, too, that is fun. We all like making new things out of Legos or blocks, or drawing new things on paper and inventing things. But as you get older, maybe you would like to change the world. Maybe you would like to think of ways that the world needs changing and the ways to solve the problems. And if you need the information, if you need inspiration, this is where you are going to find it. You will find it in the library. And if any of you are interested in any of the ideas in these books, there are prototypes for every single one of them, except the dinosaur. The dinosaur from genetic engineering on the last page does not exist yet. We do not have the technology, and I'm not really sure that we actually would want to create a dinosaur if we did. But all of the other things in that book really do exist, and you will find information about them in your library. And in a whisper, do you know that your library is really a magic carpet? Your library can take you anywhere. When you go to your library, you will find books that can take you any time in the world. You can go back and see the pyramids built. You can climb an exploding volcano and be perfectly safe because it's just in the covers of the book. And when you shut the book, the volcano is gone. You can surf tsunamis. You can go into outer space. You can meet armies of zombies. You can live with the gorillas or the pandas. You can swim with the dolphins. When you go to your library, you can go anywhere and anytime. And if you need information about anything from dogs to dinosaurs, you can find that in your library too. And you can take 100 books out for nothing. You can take 1,000 books out for nothing. You can even take 1,000,000 books out and it won't cost you a cent. Whatever books you need, whatever books you want, whatever subject you are interested, just go to your library and ask, and they will find it for you. Okay, are there any questions?
I do have some fun facts though, that
oh, lovely.
You may not know, but in our library catalogue, we have over 190 items written by you. That's a huge amount. And not only just books, we have audio books, we have ebooks, we have spoken word, we have books that you can stream and listen to on our Storybox library. So there's no reason you can't go to the library.
Yeah, I have to say there are lots and lots of other wonderful things at the libraries. And yes, books can be like this. They can be audio books. They can be books that you actually look at someone reading it.
That's
and
right.
And listen to at the same time. And all of those things at the library are absolutely free. And you just ask the children's librarian and she will find it for you.
You can ask anyone in the library and everyone is there to help you. Even now that we are in lockdown, you can still go online and you can reserve your books and come and pick them up. So there's no way that you can't visit the library. Now,
just before we go, we did have absolutely brilliant, wonderful, gorgeous wombats in the competition who will all be getting a book prize. But just before we finish, can anyone suggest in the chat room a name for our new baby wombat, who is the great-grandchild of Mothball Wombat? Can anyone suggest the absolutely perfect name for a new wombat? Who can think of one?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Yes.
While we think, there's been some really lovely things in the chat. And we have one here from Rachel who says, "Dear Jackie, I'm 47 and a huge fan of your books. Is your major passion wombats or writing? Which one?"
Look, that's like asking, do I like watermelon or cherries best? I like both in my life, and that's the same. I love having wombats in my life. I love writing, and I love a whole range of things, and all of them add up to a really, really lovely life. There's a beautiful question in here. What colour is a wombat's house? And that is a very, very interesting question, because a wombat's house is a burrow, and that depends on the colour of the soil. So a wombat's house here is usually a lovely chocolate brown because that's what the color of the soil is. But when you go a little bit further down the valley, the soil is a much paler color, a very, very pale tan color. And the wombats' houses are quite different. They're pale tan. And when you go to an area where there's red soil, you get red wombat houses. So whatever the color of the soil is, that's the wombat's house. But inside the wombat's house, inside the burrow, it's really interesting because they usually have quite small openings. That's to keep them safe. But if you go a little way inside, by the way, do not crawl down a wombat hole because sometimes wombats share their homes with snakes and other animals. So do not crawl down a wombat hole. But if a camera goes down the hole, often there's a room which can even be big enough for you to sit up in, which is a wombat seat or sit.
Oh my
and
God.
Often the floor of that is they've dug it so it's really nice soft dirt or sand. But quite often the wombats make themselves a bed. So they'll go out and they'll bring in old tussock and old bracken and they'll make themselves a bed. But we had one wombat here called Gabby. And Gabby was a very, very fussy wombat. And one day I looked out the window and there was Gabby at our lavender bush. And she was picking branches of lavender and lavender flowers. And for about 3 days, she just took branch after branch of lavender and lavender flowers into her wombat hole. So she had the best smelling wombat hole in the whole of Australia. So you never, ever, ever know with wombats. At the moment, our wombats are fat because we've got so much grass and they spend nearly all their time sleeping. But I've known a wombat who could count up to 6. I've known one wombat who wanted carrots so much that he pulled a box over to our garden chair, climbed up on the garden chair, leapt from the garden chair up onto the windowsill, and then leapt from the windowsill down onto the sofa, onto my lap, where I was watching a video. He wanted his carrots. You never, ever, ever know with wombats. You can live with wombats for about 50 years, like I have, and you are still finding new things about wombats. They are always fascinating. Oh, someone suggested chocolate as a name. Oh, Grizzy. I love Grizzy. Tibbles. Bonsai. Oh, Bonsai would be a great name. Okay, Rose Blossom. Oh, I love Rose Blossom.
And Fuzzball.
Oh, that's wonderful. Beg your pardon?
Fuzzball.
Oh, Fuzzball. Oh, that sounds great. I think what I'm going to have to do is find out what the new wombat looks like. Do they look like a fuzzball or a bonsai or a grizzly or a chocolate or chocky? We did have a wombat once called Chocolate, who, because she was chocolate covered, and she actually was a lovely wombat. And even when she was a great, big, enormous, smelly wombat, if we were sitting down having a picnic by the creek, she would come walking along and she would just sit in people's laps, which was actually often very, very dusty and very, very smelly. But she still wanted the cuddle, even when she was a very, very, very big wombat. Chocolate was a lovely wombat. Chocky would be fun, and Chocolate and Grizzly and Tibbles. Look,
and
that's fantastic.
We have some more comments. Jessica says that
Lovely.
she lived in Sydney for several years and she fell in love with your wombat books, but now they live in America and she has just read The Diary of a Wombat to her children the other night. And it was so much fun to hear you read it out today.
Oh, lovely. I'm glad you found that one.
And
Lovely.
Zara
Thank
says
you.
They are Aussies, but their kids were born overseas and it was lovely to introduce your books to them. So she's saying thank you. But look at some of those names. How fabulous.
There's someone too that they never heard of a wombat sit.
Sit.
There are other wombat sits too. When I first came here, I used to wonder why right on top of the ridges or places where there was a wonderful view, you would find bare ground where you would find wombats just sitting at night as though they were looking at the view. But wombats are very short-sighted. They can really only focus on dirt and grass, which is right in front of their noses. So how could a wombat look at a view? And it took me years to work it out. Wombats smell a view. Dogs can smell 10,000 times better than a person. And wombats can smell 10,000 times better than a dog. So when a wombat looks at a view, it's smelling everything. And the wombat can see the view just by the way that it smells. Sometimes wombats lose their eyesight and they don't even seem to care. They still know where they're going. They still know where their burrow is. They still know where the carrots are. They still know where the humans are. They know exactly what they're doing and where they're going just from their sense of smell. And that's one of the reasons why often when a wombat goes past, even half an hour later, there's been a wombat here. There is a very, very strong wombat smell. It's not a yucky smell, but it's not like a smell like roses either. It is very, very definitely a wombat smell. And that's how one wombat can tell another wombat, or if another wombat has been around even days and days and days ago. They can smell.
Well,
okay, and we've got another one. We have to come to the end of our
story time.
The grandma.
And I'd like to thank you, Jackie, for making it my morning, and I'm sure everybody's morning, so much fun.
So look, thank you so much for organising this. It was just great fun. Thank you.